This video tutorial will provide the understanding of preparing and filing a tax return within the AccuTax software, and will guide you through the entire process, including electronic filing and using the forms-based mode. To prepare a return using the Return Interview mode, watch the video Preparing a Return in Interview mode in the AccuTax University Library. To enhance your experience when preparing a tax return, watch the Tax Return Tools video tutorial in the AccuTax University Library. The Tax Return Tools video will show you ways to access different functions and will introduce you to a few functions not mentioned during this video. Before creating a new return, let's take a closer look at the layout of the tax return view. Located at the top of the screen are navigational tabs. These tabs enable you to navigate between the individual 1040 Returns module, the Business Returns module, and the Tax Office Manager Support Portal, also known as TOM. Beneath the navigational tabs is the Software Menu Toolbar, which provides access to all sorts of software configurations. The Tax Return Toolbar is located directly underneath the Software Toolbar and contains all of the basic functions that will be helpful with the preparation and filing of the tax return. The Taxpayer Return Information bar displays the taxpayer's name, Social Security number, and the date the return was created. Note, if an asterisk appears next to the taxpayer's name, a change has been made in the return, but not if the return has not been saved. To the left of the tax return is the attached form screen, which displays all of the forms that are associated with the tax return. When a new return is created, the client data screen will be the default view. The client data screen is where you enter general information about the taxpayer and other pertinent information, such as the spouse and dependents. To navigate between fields within the tax return, click on the desired field, or use either the Enter or Tab key on the keyboard. To delete information, use the backspace or delete key on the keyboard. Let's begin creating a new tax return. Before creating a new individual return, make sure you are on the 1040 Returns module tab. From the software menu bar on the Work in Progress screen, click on the Add New button and the Add New Return window will open. If the taxpayer does not have a valid Social Security number or ITIN, click on the W7 button and a new return will be created with all 9s displayed as the Social Security number. For more information on completing a tax return that requires a W7 form, watch the W7 video in the AccuTax University Library. If the taxpayer has a valid Social Security number, enter and confirm the taxpayer's Social Security number and click OK. It is a requirement to enter the Social Security number twice when creating a new return. The second time is a check to verify that the Social Security number is entered correctly. The client data screen will now display. When a field is highlighted, a description of what belongs in the field will display at the bottom of the screen. In the DOB field, which stands for Date of Birth, enter the date of birth of the client and press Enter or Tab. The DOD field, which stands for Date of Death, will be highlighted. Enter the date of death if applicable. Continue by entering the taxpayer's first name, middle initial, and last name in the appropriate fields. In the Occupation field, manually enter the client's occupation. For a predefined list of occupants, click the Choices button at the bottom of the client data screen, or use the shortcut F3 function key while the cursor is highlighted in the Occupation field. For more productivity, you can add occupations to the databases, so the occupations can be displayed in the choice list for future references. To add an occupation to the database so it can repopulate in the list, check out the Databases video in the AccuTax University Library. Next to Dependent, enter an X only if the client is claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. If the client is legally blind or disabled, place an X in the corresponding boxes and press Enter or Tab. Enter the appropriate phone numbers in the fields for the taxpayer's home, work, and cell phone numbers. A cell phone number must be entered to use the AccuTax messaging feature. Place an X in the text message field if the client would like to be notified of updates via text message. Navigate to the cell phone carrier field and click the Choices button at the bottom of the screen or the function shortcut key F3 to open the cell phone carrier's window. Select the client's cell phone carrier and then click OK. The window will close and the cell phone carrier and code will appear in the client data screen. Continue completing the information required in the Taxpayer Information section. Next to Filing Status, enter the appropriate number to indicate the filing status of the client. Enter 1 for single, 2 for married filing jointly, 3 for married filing separate, 4 for head of household, or 5 for widow or widower. These codes will be displayed at the bottom of the client data screen when the field is highlighted. If 1, 4, or 5 is entered, the next field highlighted will be address information. If you enter 2, the spouse information field will be highlighted. Enter the spouse's information in the appropriate fields. If you enter 3, answer the questions: if married filing separate, did you live together at any time during the tax year? And, if so, did you live together during the final 6 months? By placing an X in the boxes if these statements are true. For this tutorial, we will select option 1 for single. AccuTax automatically skips over the spouse information fields since this return is for a single taxpayer. Enter the taxpayer's mailing address under Address Information. If the taxpayer would like to receive their refund via direct deposit by the IRS or utilize a bank refund settlement product, navigate to the Bank Information section located under Address Information. In the bank name field, you can enter the bank's name or use the Choices button to open the bank's window. Select the taxpayer's bank from the list of options and click OK. The bank name will automatically be entered along with the corresponding routing number. When you manually enter a new bank name along with the routing number, it will be automatically added to the database to be selected the next time you click the Choices button. A rule of thumb is to clarify and verify that the routing number displayed is the correct routing number for the taxpayer's bank account. Enter the client's bank account number and select checking or savings to reflect the correct type of account. The Client Referral section allows you to track the different ways you are growing your client base. Next to the Client Referral field, enter how the client found your business, or select the Choices button at the bottom of the screen to open the Referral Choice screen. Click on the type of referral and click OK. Answer the 5 questions regarding how the client received health insurance in the last year accordingly. If the client does not have any dependents, leave the section titled Dependents, Children, and Other Qualifying Individuals blank. If the client does have dependents, you will need to list them in this section. By default, there are 9 lines in this section. To add more than 9 dependents, click on the Worksheets button near the bottom of the client data screen. To add a dependent, enter the dependent's first and last name, birth date, and social security number. Navigate to the Relationship field and click Choices at the bottom of the screen. Click on the correct choice and click OK. In the MO field, which stands for months, enter the number of months the dependent lived with the taxpayer during the tax year. You can also enter MX for Mexico or CN for Canada if the dependent lived in either of those countries for the entire year. Press Enter or Tab to continue. In the first box of the Code section, click the Choices button at the bottom of the client data screen and highlight the correct choice, or once you become familiar with the codes, you can manually enter the correct code. In the second box of the Code section, AccuTax will automatically select the proper EIC status for this dependent based on the previously entered information. If the status is incorrect, click Choices at the bottom of the screen and select the appropriate choice, or once you have become familiar with the choices, you can manually enter the correct choice. In the third box, AccuTax will automatically select whether the dependent is eligible for the child tax credit based on the information already entered. If the dependent is eligible, the child tax credit worksheet will automatically be added to the federal tax return, and it will auto-populate the child's information to the form. In the fourth box of the Code section, enter an X if the taxpayer is eligible for dependent care expenses on Form 2441 for this dependent because the dependent is a child. If the dependent is not a child and is disabled, select D for the code. In the ST box, different codes may be available depending on the state entered for a return. If applicable, enter one of the codes displayed at the bottom of the client data screen when this field is highlighted. If there are more dependents, complete this process for each one of them. If there are not, move on to the next section. If the taxpayer is eligible for the Earned Income Credit and Form 8867, the Form 8867 will automatically be added to the return. If you are paid to prepare a tax return claiming an Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Tax Credit, an Additional Child Tax Credit, or an American Opportunity Tax Credit, due diligence regulations now require you to complete and submit the Form 8867 Tax Preparer's Due Diligence Checklist. If the client has non-dependents claimed for Earned Income Credit or disabled person's dependent care expenses, follow the directions for entering dependents. For an in-depth video tutorial on non-dependents, visit the AccuTax University Library. The information that is entered into the client data screen will flow to the forms that are added later to the tax return and make it more convenient when preparing the return. So, it is important to complete as much as possible on the client data screen. Adding federal and state forms to the tax return. Select the Add Forms button located in the tax return menu toolbar, or press the Ctrl+A key for a shortcut to add forms. The All Forms and Schedules window will open. Scroll through the list of forms to locate the correct form and enter the schedule or form number in the box at the bottom of the window. Select the form and press Enter or double-click to add the form to the tax return. The W-2 form will be highlighted by default because it is an important form for any tax return. At the top of the All Forms and Schedules window are different tabs. Navigating between these tabs organizes the forms to make it more convenient to locate the appropriate one. For a more in-depth look of all the Forms and Schedules window when adding a form, check out the Adding and Deleting a Form in the AccuTax University Library. In this video tutorial, we will add only the Form W-2 and the state return. Click the W-2 form to highlight it if it is not already selected, and press Enter to add it to the tax return. Entering data into a form is the same as entering data on the client data screen. Begin by entering the employer's identification number, and continue entering all information that is required for the taxpayer's employer. Once the employer's information has been completed, the cursor will automatically move to the Wages field. AccuTax will automatically calculate the Social Security wages, Social Security tax withheld, Medicare wages, and Medicare tax withheld fields. However, verify that the W-2 matches what the taxpayer brings in. The cursor will now be positioned on the Federal Tax Withheld field. Normally, this information comes from Form W-2, Box 2. When the form is completed, you can continue working on the return by adding additional forms or continue with completing the processing of the return. To add a state tax return, click on the Add Form button to open the All Forms and Schedules window or press Ctrl+A. Select the State tab at the top of the window, and using the drop-down menu under Available States, choose the appropriate state to be attached to the return. Once you select the appropriate state, a list of specific forms for that state will be available to choose. Select the individual income tax return from the list of forms to add the state return. Complete all of the other state forms that are required. After all of the data has been entered to complete the return, the following steps will ensure that the return is completed properly. Open the Form 1040 by double-clicking on RET 1040 Federal Return under Federal in the attached form screen to the left. Review the Form 1040 and verify that all the information is accurate and complete. Fill in any additional information that must be entered on the form directly. To select the refund disbursement method, open the Form 8879 from the form screen under the Federal Attached Forms. The Form 8879 is a default form that will auto-populate on each tax return. Once the Form 8879 is open, the cursor will be highlighted on the refund type. In the refund type field, enter 1 if the taxpayer elects to receive a paper check from the IRS, or enter 2 if the taxpayer elects to receive a direct deposit from the IRS. If a tax payment is due for the taxpayer, select option 4 for tax payment due. Or, If the taxpayer chooses to receive a cash advance or have their tax preparation fees deducted from the refund, then option 5 would be selected for a bank or refund settlement product. For this video tutorial, the taxpayer elected to receive a refund bank settlement product. Therefore, the refund type will be option 5. The electronic bank application will be automatically added to the attached forms list. The bank application for this video tutorial will be TPG. Different banks have different guidelines and bank applications concerning their bank products. It will be necessary to refer to the banking guidelines sent to you concerning your own bank for details on how to process a bank application. Open the bank application by double-clicking on Bank App under Federal in the attached forms list. The top of the bank application will display the taxpayer and spouse information, included but not limited to the taxpayer's name, date of birth, filing status, refund amount, and address. Select the box stating the taxpayer has reviewed and signed all bank documents. Enter the taxpayer's identifying information and answer the series of questions before moving on. Check the box confirming that you, the preparer, have reviewed the taxpayer's government-issued unexpired driver's license or ID. The Account Information section displays the disbursement type. Select the exact method of disbursement, such as check, direct deposit, or debit card. If direct deposit, enter the taxpayer's bank routing and account number and account type. The Truth in Lending Disclosure section displays the expected return amount, the preparation fees, and the amount after advance. Enter all data on the screen. Banks will not process partially completed bank applications. For more detailed information on completing a bank application, watch the bank application video tutorial in the AccuTax University Library. Once you have completed the electronic bank application, return to the Form 8879 and navigate to the section titled Part 1, Tax Return Information. In Other Documents Attached, select any additional documents that need to be attached to the return. In Part 2, Declaration of Taxpayer, line 6C, check the box only if the taxpayer wants the IRS to automatically withhold funds from the taxpayer's refund to pay federal income taxes owed by the taxpayer. If the taxpayer's PIN is not set up to automatically generate, enter a 5-digit number selected by the taxpayer. Keep in mind, this PIN cannot contain all zeros. If applicable, complete the same process for the spouse's PIN. In the Prior Year AGI section, enter this amount from last year's return if the information was not automatically completed. Repeat this step for spouse's prior year AGI. In the taxpayer's prior year PIN section, enter the 5-digit number selected by the taxpayer for last year's return. Repeat this step for spouse's prior year PIN. Next to signature date, enter the date the taxpayer and spouse are acknowledging and electronically signing this return. The PIN codes will automatically appear in the next section. Enter a 5-digit number selected by the ERO or paid preparer next to ERO/paid preparer PIN. Enter information where it is missing throughout the rest of the form. Verify the tax return. To verify a return, click the Verify button on the toolbar while in the tax return. AccuTax examines every field in the return for errors that must be fixed before the return is sent to the IRS. If errors have been found in the return, the Return Errors and Rejects window will automatically open on the Verify tab, and the errors will be listed by package, form, and message. Click on an error to highlight it, and click on the Details button to view the details of the error. Double-click on an error, and the form and field containing the error will be highlighted. Fix the error and press Enter on the keyboard. Continue correcting all errors until the process is complete. Continue to fix errors and run the verification process until all the errors are fixed and the No Errors Rejects window opens. If there are no errors found in the return, the No Errors Reject window will open, stating that the return has been verified successfully. Printing the tax return and capturing signatures. To print the verified return, click the Print button on the toolbar or press Ctrl+P on the keyboard, and the Print Final Return window will open. This window allows the return to be printed, saved as a PDF, or queued to be transmitted on the Work in Progress screen. Choose the printer you want to use from the drop-down list next to Name. Click Print to print the return. Click Sign Doc to enter an electronic signature from a signature pad on the document. Click the Email Doc checkbox first, and then click Sign Doc to email a signed, encrypted copy of the tax return to the taxpayer. Click the Remote Sign button to generate a link that will be sent to the taxpayer or spouse requesting their signature. Once the signature is received, it will automatically populate in the return. Click Queue to queue the return for printing in the WIP. Click Filter to choose only certain pages of the return to print or archive. Click PDF to create a PDF of the return. Check the Encrypt PDF box to encrypt the PDF with a password so that it may be safely emailed to the client. Click Preview to preview how the return will look when it is printed. Queuing and transmitting the tax return. This program allows you to easily electronically file your client's returns. The returns are queued to be transmitted from within the return after the return has been prepared. The returns are sent to the central site, which then sends the returns to the IRS and any applicable state agencies. To transmit the verified return, click the Q button on the tax return menu bar, or press Ctrl+T on the keyboard. The Q return for transmission screen will appear and show available packages. Check the boxes under the Q column for the packages you want to queue for transmitting. Check the box Submit for Diagnostics only if the return needs to be examined by technical support before it is sent to the IRS or state agency. Click Q to send the returns to the Transmit queue in the Work in Progress screen. Helpful tools to keep in mind when preparing a tax return. A helpful tool to keep in mind while preparing a tax return is the Quick button located in the toolbar. This button allows you to verify the real-time status of a tax return. You can even check the status of a return using this button while working on a different one, in case a client calls in requesting an update while you are working. The Notes button is useful for adding important notes to a return. When you enter a note using this button on the toolbar, it is attached to the return and will display as soon as the return is opened. If the taxpayer isn't using a bank product, using the Payment button on the toolbar will allow you to register cash, check, or credit card payments to your tax office. After watching this video, you should now understand how to prepare a tax return. Check out our many in-depth training video tutorials in the AccuTax University Library.